And yes, so let's look forward to what Aparna has to say. I would like to introduce Aparna. Aparna, whenever you're ready, let me know. I'll put on your slides. Yes.
Sure.
So, Aparna Iyer began working with young children with an international peace organization. Later, teaching at a Lebanese kindergarten in Ghana, that was way back in 2006. She was seeking a deeper pedagogy, and so she pursued Montessori training and earned her AMI primary diploma in 2008. She established the Montessori division at National Public School, Chennai, where she served as a teacher and coordinator for over a decade. Currently, she is the director of pedagogy at Global Montessori Centre, which is an NPS group in Chennai, and is an AMI 3 to 6 associate trainer, undergoing the AMI Training of Trainers program. Aparna is a national examiner for AMI primary courses or Casa courses and has completed AMI orientation courses at birth to 3, 6 to 12, and 12 to 18 levels. She is passionate expanding Montessori education. She has conducted orientation courses in Kanyakumari. That was the most recent Aparna took. I remember I was there with you in the office when you had one of the sessions.
Yes.
So I would also request everybody to keep themselves on mute so that we can clearly hear Aparna without any interruptions. Yes, and of course I can put everybody on mute, but that we are new to Zoom, so we were very used to MS Teams. Here I have some help on participants. And yes, I see mute all, and then I have to unmute Aparna. Okay. Aparna is right here. I have asked her to unmute.
Okay, done.
Okay, and now shall I show your slides or when you ask?
No, I'll just let you know when.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Over to you now.
Yeah, thank you. So for us from COVID, we feel we are born and brought up in Zoom. We feel we are born and brought up in Zoom. We have been using it so much now. Okay. So good morning to everyone. And thank you, Neeti. I don't know if Nishant is here, but thank you to both of you for inviting me to speak today. And I'm going to jump right in. So we all know that the early years of birth to 6 is called the foundational years in a child's development and growth. Generally, children start their early years education at around 2.5 to 3 years. Firstly, why do we call it the foundational period? We know that their bodies are growing, which is visible to us, but their brains are also developing rapidly during this period. And this is where I would like you to pull up the slide. So in a way, by the time of birth, the brain has developed as much as it can and as much as it needs to within the womb. Firstly, if it grows any more, the head would become larger, making it even more difficult. The next slide, please. Making it even more difficult or impossible for the baby to be born. And secondly, the remaining brain development needs to happen in relationship with the outer environment so that the child can best adapt and become best suited to the time, place, and culture that he or she is born into. Simply put, the brain is creating trillions of synaptic connections during this early period based on their experiences with the environment. So that is the catch. The synaptic connections are being created based on their experiences with the environment. Every experience and every engagement with the environment and the people around them trigger this creation. This genesis or creation of neural pathways is laying the very foundation for the child's foundational brain architecture. Every time the child learns a skill, creates an understanding, forms a connection based on relationships, develops a competency, they become part of the child's brain architecture. And in most cases, this stays with them for life. So let us look very briefly at the development of the child in the early years. And we are going to look at it classified into different domains. Can you go to the next slide, please? Next slide. Thank you. So when we looked at what happens internally within the child, and that's the brain development. But externally, how is it manifested? We look at it. We can broadly classify that into these various domains. And basically, when we talk about early years education, this is what we are, catering to. So first is the development of their physical and life skills. And we will do, and you will see that through my talk, I'll be touching upon each of these developmental domains. So socio-emotional competencies, communication skills, work skills, sensorial and pre-math skills, an understanding of knowledge of the world, understanding of mathematical concepts, development of spoken language and literacy, and expression through art, music, and movement. So basically, these are the various domains that we need to address, need to educate the child. E.T., you can pull out the PPT. I don't need it for quite some time. Thank you. So with that backdrop in place, we will move our focus for today to the education that children receive in the Casa, that is the 3 to 6 Montessori classroom. When we start talking about Montessori education, we need to necessarily begin with a brief introduction of the person who was instrumental in giving us this educational philosophy and pedagogy. That is Dr. Maria Montessori. Dr. Montessori was a trained physician who treated children, what we would call a pediatrician now. She also worked in a psychiatric clinic for children with disorders, whom we would now refer to as children with special needs. She continued to study alongside her work. She studied educational philosophies, pedagogy, anthropology, and psychology. In fact, if we look at her timeline, she nearly spent her first 30 years of her life studying all these subjects. She took up not only formal university courses, but also pursued her own study of related subjects. Along the way, from being a doctor, she transitioned into an educator. The significant thing to note is that essentially she was a trained scientist who, through her research, experiments, and observations, arrived at what we now know as Montessori education. And this is not something which she theorized first and then put it into practice. Instead, she derived this theory from the practical, what she had actually seen. And she herself called it a scientific pedagogy. The Montessori pedagogy has been around for over 100 years now, but it continues to stand the test of time and scientific research. The Casa is a specially, intelligently, and consciously prepared environment to support the whole development of the child. By whole, I mean the body and the mind, cognitive development and socio-emotional development, what we would think of as right brain development and left brain development. The first aspect of the Casa that strikes us is its social setting. When we say social setting, it consists of the mixed age grouping, the high adult to children ratio, and the freedom within natural boundaries. This setting essentially mimics any social group that we may encounter in real life. Whether it be our family or workplace, we encounter individuals gathered together who are of different ages, possessing different abilities, having different needs, all functioning parallelly and also collaboratively. bound together by a common set of expectations and regulations. Children experience the same thing over here in the casa. This creates innumerable opportunities for them to learn from each other. The younger children learn how to behave in this community by observing the older ones who have already developed their social behavior. The older children also teach the younger children concepts and skills that they have just mastered. The children naturally develop an understanding without having to be told that different individuals have different abilities, strengths, and weaknesses. They accept it as a way of life and develop empathy for those who are weaker and spontaneously reach out to support and help them learn and grow. And this is something that needs to be seen to believe. And I have worked with children for over almost close to 2 decades now, and it's it's a revelation that children can be so empathetic and they can be so caring and they spontaneously help each other, and that is something to be seen to be really believed. So they accept it as a way of life and develop empathy, especially because same age children are not grouped together. Competition is eliminated, replaced by collaboration. This is further helped by the fact that the teacher works mostly one-on-one with each child, supporting each child to learn and progress at her own pace. The emphasis in the CASA is on each child to first develop individually and become capable and independent. The fact that there is one or a maximum of two adults supporting a CASA of 30 to 40 children is a huge advantage. This means more opportunity for the children to interact with each other. They necessarily seek help from each other and learn from each other. This also means that the children try harder to master skills and competencies to eventually become more independent. There are more realistic opportunities for the learning to become child-led rather than being teacher-led. However, this does not mean that the children are abandoned or that they can do whatever they want or not engage in any developmental activity at all. Even though there are limited adults, these adults are trained to observe the children. They track each child's learning, maintain meticulous observation records, and prepare individualized learning plans for each child. They introduce and initiate each child into successively challenging activities. Thus, the adults are more guides than teachers in the CASA. Most often, when we think of a gathering of young children, we think chaos and conflict, probably because that is what we have encountered many times. However, a Montessori CASA with 30 to 40 children between the ages of 3 and 6 belies that. One of the many reasons for that is that the CASA is governed by freedom within natural boundaries. The children, right from the moment they step in, start understanding that they are free to move, to choose, to engage in activities, and to socialize with each other. But this is exactly the situation when we would expect chaos and conflict. However, apart from understanding the freedoms, the children also understand the natural boundaries attached to each of these freedoms. They understand these freedoms and boundaries by observing the existing children, just slightly older than them, but already with months of lived experience in this environment. This in itself is a valuable learning. Apart from this, the children also experience the natural consequences of crossing the boundaries, either as reminders from other children or by how the events unfold naturally. A child may move freely in the casa, but has to do so without bumping into others or bumping into the shelves and without stepping on mats and materials. A child may choose an activity, but from out of those already shown to her by the guide and that which is developmentally appropriate. Also, the child may only choose the activity from the shelf when it is not in use by any other child. because there is only one of each material or activity. If the child wishes to work with a material which is not available at that moment, they need to either wait for it or become available, or for it to become available, or choose another alternative for that moment. A child may choose to work anywhere in the casa, but needs to be mindful of doing so without disturbing others in any way. A child may socialize with other children or with a guide, but not when they are engaged in some work of their own, and not so loudly as to disturb others. So there are three broad and very firmly held rules that support these already mentioned freedoms and boundaries in the casa. That is, one cannot harm oneself, one cannot harm others, and one cannot harm the objects in the environment. Now, like all policies look great on paper, these freedoms and boundaries do sound great, but how are these implemented? Definitely, not just through gentle and firm reminders as the situation may require. The older and more experienced children themselves may stop a younger child and tell them very kindly yet firmly that a behavior is unacceptable. If that does not resolve the situation, the ever vigilant guide steps in swiftly but quietly, stops the child, and redirects her. The guides also use another technique. Instead of waiting for the new children in the casa to make mistakes and then stop or correct them, they show the children the appropriate behavior and speech through what is called as the grace and courtesy lessons. Through these lessons, which are offered to small groups of children, the guide shows how to walk in the casa, amidst all the shelves and materials, how to carry objects carefully, how to greet each other, how and when to say thank you, excuse me, and so on. So hence in the casa, there are clear expectations, clear and simple rules laid down, and these are followed through kindly, firmly, consistently, and constantly. We can say that this is essentially the secret mantra behind the lack of chaos and conflict in the casa. The children innately understand that in the casa, they are accepted non-judgmentally. They are respected and trusted, and that essentially the entire environment has been designed with an understanding of their needs and to facilitate them to engage in activities of their interest. They also have this natural desire to be part of this social group. All of these make them willingly and voluntarily abide by the societal rules. They put in great effort to control their impulsiveness and thereby gradually achieve self-control and self-discipline. The social emotional learning opportunities for children in the casa are tremendous. And all the learning happens organically, naturally, just by living in the casa each day, day by day. This is the reason why there needs to be a fairly large group of children in the casa. Dr. Montessori mentions this in her writing, and she says that when there is a large group size, there will be children of different temperaments and nature. This will help the children to experience a fair sampling of humanity in all its different hues and colors. This experience will prepare them for living amidst the society at large later in life. Till now, we looked at the social setting of the casa. Now let us look at the physical setup of the casa. We won't have time to go into too much details, but just enough to give an idea of how it is designed to offer purposeful and meaningful support to the children's development. First thing that will strike you when you enter the casa will be its simplicity, the tidiness, the shelves at child's height, all the materials displayed neatly. Young children require order, constancy, and consistency in their lives. It is both a psychological as well as a cognitive need. They are quite new to this world and are just making sense of this world around them and creating an understanding of everything in it. Order around them helps them to identify the relationships between things. And with many such repetitions, they will then be able to derive patterns and use those models to predict, to generalize, and establish their knowledge. Niti, can you go to the next slide? Just show the next one. So I'm going to give you an example of what I meant that, how they use models to predict. Next slide. The one with the tables, yes. So let's, take this example of tables. And the minute we hear the same, we know what it is, and we can bring an image of a table in our minds. But before that, let us try and define what a table is. It's actually, you can define a table as a flat surface that is raised some distance above the floor level. But here you see that we have several kinds of tables made of wood, made of plastic, with the different kinds of legs. Some are on a pedestal. Some have only three, legs. Some are on one single pedestal. Some have four legs. And we use them for different purposes. We use them to dine upon. We use them as a writing desk. We use them for so many purposes. So though the child sees several tables used for a variety of purposes, even a child as young as 15 to 18 months will be able to point to a table when we utter the word table. So psychologically, order and consistency helps the child build trust in the world and the people around and helps them feel secure. Thank you, Niti. You can pull off the slide. One of the most common causes of tantrums by young children is when there is disorder around them, which challenges their understanding or shakes their faith in whatever knowledge they have built up until now. If there is disorder and things change drastically, it will challenge their knowledge creation. The Casa will not be, Casa is not an assault on their senses, but the aesthetics are soothing and neutral, which ensures that the children's senses are not overstimulated. Instead, the beauty of the Montessori materials and the way they are displayed appropriately stimulate the children's interest. The materials being always on display, accessible to the children at all times, again assures them that they are there for their use and no one is going to take it away from them. This leads to their developing trust in the environment and the guides in the environment, the Casa, which in turn enables them to exercise patience. The Casa has what we call practical life activities that are the first to be introduced to the very young children. These are activities that the children love to do because they see the people around them do these. But for various reasons, many of our children may not have had the opportunity to do them at home. Some of these activities are sweeping or mopping, washing hands, fastening buttons, and gradually moving on to even food preparation activities. The young children primarily seek to be physically and functionally independent, to be able to do all that they see the adults around them do. These activities help the children to coordinate their movement, what we better understand as fine motor coordination or eye-hand coordination. This is not easy. It takes a lot of effort and focus. For example, if a child wants to fetch a jug of water, but young children naturally love to overcome challenges. They do it over and over again till they can do it well. These activities help the children develop their ability to focus and concentrate on a task. These activities also require the children to plan, organize, use logical steps, and exercise critical thinking. And because they are learning several skills and learning to do them really well, they become physically and functionally independent. Being able to function by themselves raises their self-confidence in their own abilities. By putting in effort into overcoming challenges, they develop persistence and grit. All of these help the children in later life, be it in learning, be it in life. The children use the skills thus gained to not just take care of themselves, but also to help others, to take care of the environment as and when they perceive the need, not just when and because they are told to do so by us, the adults. Neeti, can you pull up the last slide? Apart from the above activities that develop life and work skills, the Casa also has sensorial activities that are unique to Montessori education. All of us interact with the world through our senses. So what you're seeing here is called the homunculus. This is supposed to be the way our brain sees our body. Roughly 1/3 of the motor sensory cortical areas are dedicated to the hands. Another third is associated with all the sense organs located in our face. And only the remaining third is devoted to the rest of the body. Thank you, Neeti. So we would have heard the adage, senses are the gateways to intelligence, which is originally attributed to Aristotle. And Dr. Montessori, in her writing, she said that hands are the instruments of man's intelligence. She found that young children learn best through their senses and by manipulating objects and working with their hands. The sensorial materials are the result of her research and experiments. Earlier, we saw how order is important for the child. The sensorial materials help the children to bring some order to all the huge amounts of information they are collecting through their senses. To understand, think of all the information we store in our computers. After a while, we will find it difficult to navigate and find or retrieve the information we need. But if we categorize the information and follow a clear naming and filing system, we will be able to access the information quickly and efficiently. The sensorial material help the children to categorize, classify, and name all the sensory information that they are taking in. Dimensions, shapes, colors, textures, smells, and so on. The activities that the children engage in with the sensorial materials specifically help them to observe and distinguish even the minutest of differences and to explore and discover patterns. These are also pre-math skills and prepare the child's mind for the study of mathematics, which is nothing but the study of an expression of relationships and patterns, which in its turn helps us to predict. All of these are essentially aspects of our human intelligence. Through the sensorial material, the children are moved on to mathematics materials. They are introduced to foundational mathematics through use of, again, their senses and hands. These young children learn complex concepts, complex for that age group, that even some children in grades 2 and 3 in traditional schools may find it difficult to understand, like the idea of zero meaning nothing and also being a placeholder. The decimal system, the categories in the system, the carrying over, the borrowing between the categories, and so on. And they learn all this effortlessly with ease and joy. There are materials and activities for the children to learn what we know as tables, multiplication tables. How many of us remember having to rote learn it? But what we in Montessori, we call them as essential combinations. And they are not just introduced to the essential combinations of multiplication, but to the essential combinations of all 4 operations. Another extension of the sensorial materials are what we call culture materials or culture activities. In Montessori, everything in nature that is understood and classified by man, by us, everything that is man-made are all categorized under culture. What in traditional schools would be called as EVS. Right? So geography, which is about the world, botany, the world of plants, zoology, which is the world of animals, and the rest of the man-made world all the, our clothing that we wear, the food that we eat, the transportation that we created, the houses that we live in, the festivals we celebrate, all that comes under man's world. The children are even prepared for studying history later in elementary by introducing time, by talking about the past, present, and future events. Similarly, languages are introduced to the children developmentally. Each aspect of language is carefully and systematically introduced to the children. First, starting with oral language, increasing their vocabulary, and also introducing them to the context in which all those vocabulary are used. This forms the foundation for their reading, writing, and comprehension. They are introduced to the sounds of the language, the letters that denote those sounds, leading them to start writing and reading phonetically and spontaneously. We understand that though our Indian languages are mostly phonetic, English is not, and it contains several words that are orthographically complex. Systematically, the children are introduced to the various spelling combinations and also the sight words that do not follow any particular pattern. All these and more are again offered to the children through their senses and through their hands, using several specially prepared materials. Once the children start reading, they are offered a lot of reading material, again, to learn more about culture. So Montessori education also understands the need for aesthetics as a need of the human spirit. And the children are introduced to quality literature, poetry, various forms of art, music, movement, and sports, all developmentally appropriate and as preparatory for them to explore further in elementary. I can assure you that I have only just begun to tell you about all the learning that happens in the Casa. I've just only begun. Okay, I've just scratched the surface. I think despite taking over 20 odd minutes now. And there is so much more. And in fact, it is one of the phenomena that has been noticed in the Casa that children who come to Casa and even stay the full day, that these children do not tire. They have been continuously at work from morning till evening, but these children are not seen to tire, but instead they are energized by all the work they do. And each child is helped to develop at his or her own pace without pressure, without comparison with other children. Because of this, and because of the need for the children to work for prolonged periods of uninterrupted time to develop their concentration and persistence, the children start extended hours by around 4 years in the Casa. They can start extended hours by 4 years in the Casa. And that is when they will take maximum benefit from what Montessori Casa environment has to offer. And there is always so much happening in the Casa. This was just a drop in the ocean. So with that, I would like to end my talk.
Thank you so much.